You are listening to The Michael Lodge Show. Wealth, business, and taxes. Oh, yeah, and some politics. Let's get started.
Here we go. It's Sunday. Beautiful Sunday. I'm glad that it's Sunday. Beginning of the week of a brand new week. It's when we get our inspirational and also our spiritual needs up to date. Hopefully you've gone to church today if your churches are open, or watched them on the internet. I tell you, you need that beginning, right? You need a really positive, good beginning where you have that spiritual feed into your life. And you feel uplifted, you feel like you've got enough strength to make it through the next week. That's what I always enjoyed about going to church, is that I got that feed. I needed that feed. It was my dinner, my breakfast, my lunch. It was everything for that Sunday to get me ready for the remainder of the week. And I tell you, it does work. The better you are prepared spiritually, the better you will be off. Now, some of you may not believe in God, but you may have some spiritual insight. Use that spiritual insight. Build it up for the remainder of the week. But if you believe in God, believe in Him, and listen, take refuge in the fact that He's going to be with you all week. He's with you right now. And on Sunday is when we get refreshed. We get going. Our lives are blessed. You know, I was thinking the other day, well, let me say this. This morning I got up and said, you know what I'm going to do my podcast about? I'm going to talk about everything that has happened during the week. I was going to do a week in review. But then I thought, no, not going to do it. We've already lived through it. We've already seen what happened. There's nothing that we can change except ourselves. But going back and looking at the week would be a waste of time. We saw what happened on Wall Street. We saw what happened at the White House. We saw what happened in Congress, and nothing got done, right? Except more gobbledygook, as my dad and mom used to say. Don't give me that gobbledygook. I don't know what it meant, but I knew that I wasn't supposed to give it to him. I wasn't supposed to give him sass and lies and making excuses and everything. They didn't want that gobbledygook. You can use that word, by the way. Tell your children tomorrow when you get up in the morning and you start your negotiations with them on what you're going to make and prepare and what you're going to do and how they're going to go places, everything like that. When you start your negotiations, just say, I'm not going to take that gobbledygook, and see what they do. I'm not going to say, what is that? Good. Think about it. Google it. I'm almost at the beginning now, even with my godchildren, when they ask me questions. I don't want to go into this long spiel. I'm going to say, Google it, okay? If you don't know what the word stuff means, Google it. Because I'm not going to spend a half hour telling you what the word stuff means, okay? Stuff, S-T-U-F-F. Put it in your Google, find out what it means. And if you don't find it, I'll give you stuff to think about. I remember that was one of the lines of my mom almost and my dad when they saw me doing something bad. And maybe your dad and mom did the same thing, but they would always say, "You're gonna cry? I'll give you something to cry about. You're gonna cry? I'll give you something to cry about." I tell you, when we grew up, we really heard a lot of different things, didn't we? One of the things I wanted to talk about this morning is marriage and finances. Now, this podcast happens to be a business podcast, but we also talk about personal finances and things that affect our lives. Now, if you look up and you say, okay, what affects marriage? What are the most issues that marriage has at any given time? Number one, finances. Now, let's start at the very beginning, shall we? And that's when you got down on your hands, not on your hands, but on your knees with a ring in your hand, and you said, "Will you marry me?" And she dreamingly looked down on you, and she said, Ah, yes, I'll marry you. And you got up and tears were flowing and everybody was so happy and everybody thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be wonderful. But then they got into the marriage, but no one talked about their finances before they got into the marriage. Number one discussion that you should have before you even ask anybody. Stress is the most irritating thing that a marriage can have. And financial stress is even worse. And then when you are hit by a traumatic experience that affects your finances, it's even worse. But you see, a lot of individuals don't sit down in marriage and family counseling prior to even thinking about saying, I do. I've done a lot of marriages. I have performed a lot of marriages for individuals across the nation, from California to Florida. And I want to tell you that one thing that they never discuss are the marriage finances, the individual finances of the bride and the groom. They don't talk about the loan debt that they're bringing into the marriage. They're not talking about the car debt that they're bringing into the marriage. They're not talking about the credit card debt they're bringing into the marriage. When all of that should have been cleared up, because financial stress plays havoc in a marriage. If you don't clean it up prior to getting married, and I'm speaking seriously now, if you don't work at cleaning up your debt prior to getting into marriage, you're bringing into the marriage baggage. And finance baggage is so hard to carry. It's slippery and slimy. It moves all around. It grows with interest and penalties and debt. But we bring it into a marriage and we don't even talk about it before the marriage of how you are going to pay down this debt. How you're going to get rid of the debt. When you enter into a marriage, if either of you have debt that you're bringing in as baggage into the marriage, you better start paying it down now. It's one of those things that you have to do. Financial stress once you get into the marriage, especially when you have a pandemic where one of you may be losing your job, your unemployment is running out, but you still have that debt sitting there. That credit card debt is still sitting there. That loan payment on that car is still sitting there. The tuition, debt, the loans are still sitting there. And the more that you think about it, the more that you argue about it, the more that you talk about it, the more frustration grows and grows and grows. And then pretty soon, something bad is going to happen because you didn't address the issues of finance before you said, I do. I love to perform marriages. I love it more than anything else in the world. It's a joy to me. And when I see people not addressing that issue prior to marriage, I know there's going to be a problem. They're going to be back to see me in mediation. I do a lot of family mediation, and a lot of it has to do with finances. But we have to sit down and go through their finances bit by bit and try to work out a plan that they both agree to pay down that debt or to go forward in their marriage. Now, I was looking at the big list of what affects marriage, and that's a lot. And you are being bombarded every single day with marriage, unless you're in that, like my parents were. They had a very good marriage where they talked about everything and they were very affectionate in front of us, and they they loved other people. But there's a whole bunch of things that affect big issues in marriage. Infidelity, sexual differences, values and beliefs, life stages, traumatic situations, stress, boredom, jealousy, trying to change each other, communication problems, lack of attention, financial issues, lack of appreciation, technology and social media, trust issues, selfish behavior, anger issues, keeping score, lying, unrealistic expectations. That's a whole bunch. That's a big old bucket full of stuff that's being poured on you every single day that you may have to worry about. Finances as number one. So what are we going to do about it? Well, you need to start thinking about it. Those of you who are planning your wedding, sit down with an individual who has a good understanding of personal finance. And they can advise you along the way as to the goals and expectations that you can put to that debt to get it down. And there's a whole bunch of options out there for you to do. Some of it you're not going to like, some of it you're going to have to work hard for, but the faster you pay down that debt, the better you're going to be. And then you have to start planning what you're going to do future-wise in the family. And that means looking at your retirement programs, your life insurance programs, your wills, your debt. You know, last year, I asked my clients, the number one question that I asked them, do you have your will and your trust ready for when you die? You see, the problem is we don't know when we're going to die. It could happen at any given moment. I could drop over right after this podcast, and a lot of you would say, "Oh, finally." But I'm not going to. I'm not going to give you that satisfaction. But we have a lot of things when we're talking about marriage, in the beginning of marriage, that you need to focus on. So, for you individuals who are just about ready to say I do, or maybe you've said I do, but you're planning for a date. Don't plan for that date quite yet. Sit down, go over your tax issues, go over your debt issues, go over your financial planning issues, and make sure that you have a plan prior to saying I do before the minister. If you have a plan ready to go, you are a much better husband, a much better wife, a much better spouse, a much better friend, because you got everything looked at and planned beforehand. Some of you might not even want to get married until that at least half of that debt is paid down, so you don't have so much responsibility placed on each other's shoulders. Some of you a husband might be coming into the marriage, or a fiance might be coming into a marriage with $20,000 of debt each from school. How are you going to pay that down? It's your responsibility. You signed the contract. It's your responsibility. If somebody co-signed on it, they're responsible for that too. But don't make it get to that stage where they're going after somebody who co-signed. You take care of your own responsibility, your own loan obligations on everything before you place that burden on somebody else that you truly, truly love. That person that you want to be a husband or a wife to is looking at you with glowing eyes, but when there is hidden debt or there's bad debt sitting there, those glowing eyes become squinted and he begins to wonder, is this really the individual that I want to get involved with lifelong? Because the finances at the very beginning, it's all screwed up. So we have to be good stewards of our finances. That's the number one goal that God is asking of us, is that we become good stewards of our finances. And before you walk into a marriage, make sure that you have been a good steward and you have sat down and you've talked to each other about that debt and you both understand and you have a plan on how to get that debt down. Otherwise, you have all of this big, huge list that is also waiting for you when you say I do. But if you put your finances in place and you believe in a good God that's going to guide you along the way, you will make it through. Remember that big long list? I read it to you. I'm going to read it to you again so it's stuck into your head. Infidelity, sexual differences, values and beliefs, life stages, traumatic situations, stress, boredom, jealousy, trying to change each other, communication problems, lack of attention, financial issues, bling, 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 lack of appreciation, technology and social media, trust issues, selfish behavior, anger issues, keeping score, lying, unrealistic expectations. Get your finances in order because you got a whole bunch of things that are going to come your way. But let me say this, okay? On the anger issues, learn your communication skills. Keeping score, stop it. It doesn't help anything. It never did. Lying, stop it. Tell the truth all the time and make sure that you are an open book to your future spouse or new spouse. Selfish behavior, stop it. You're a team now. There can no longer be selfishness. If there is, you're going to cause a lot of problems in your marriage. Technology and social media. Now, I have seen this a lot. People hiding their private lives under a different name, under so many social media entities, living a different life than what they are in their marriage. I've seen this happen, and it has done great damage to marriages. I have mediated many a situation where people thought that they were in very healthy, normal lives, but then a private life popped up on one of the spouses. And it not just destroyed the relationship between the husband and the wife, but it involved the whole family. Mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters. It involved everybody. Be honest. Be respectful. Lack of attention. Listen, if you're not paying enough attention, rethink what you're doing. Communication problems, biggest issue. I mean, it is a big issue. The problem with a lot of us is that we don't listen. We hear what was being said, and then we're automatically thinking about what we're going to respond with, but we didn't listen to what was actually being said. And then we didn't think before we said something. And then pretty soon, after you blurt out whatever you're going to say, it becomes an anger issue. It just becomes a communication nightmare. Learn to listen. Learn to think before you say things. Practice patience and understanding. Don't be thinking what your answer is going to be immediately when they begin speaking. Listen through it and then think about your anger. I mean, not your anger, but the words, what your response is going to be. And it might be anger. Stop it. It's not going to help anything. I wish that more and more people would take a communications class between husbands and wife. And listen, when I was in college, and I went to a Christian college up in the state of Washington, everybody had to take the same class. Everyone, no matter what major you were, you had to take the same class, and it was called Marriage and Family. That's what it was called, Marriage and Family. And you would meet once a week with a whole bunch of different people, and you would talk about various issues of marriage and family life. I think every person needs to take that course. I think that everybody needs to learn how to communicate. Everybody needs to know how to control their words and how to listen. They need to know about their finances and budgeting for their families, paying down the debt. The reason why they gave that to us is because my college was a huge seminary, and there was a lot of individuals there studying for the ministry. And they wanted to make sure that after they had finished their ministerial degrees, that they were able to get married, because it seemed like about fall, the most cold time of the year in the state of Washington, people would start announcing that they were engaged. Now, we had a practice in my school is that when you announced that you were engaged, especially the guy, all the guys would round up that guy, hold him by the legs, and take him over to the girls' pond and throw him in. And sometimes it would break ice. That's how cold it was. But they gave that class because they knew that individuals in college were thinking about marriage. We had nurses there, a huge nursing school, and they were going off to become a nurse, and also a lot of them were going to get married. Every fall and every spring was the big announcements of who were going to get married. So we knew that the school knew that was coming, so they gave this class to prepare everybody so that they knew what the terms of marriage and family life was really going to be all about. It prepared them. I think every school needs to give that. I think every church needs to give it. Every church needs to give that at least once or twice a year. But we're not doing that. And I always talk about community service. If you have expertise in marriage and family counseling, start holding free seminars to these individuals who are thinking about marriage or who are in marriage and are having a rough road of it. Especially now the pandemic is a little bit over with, it's calming down just a little bit. But people's marriages have become shaky. So if you have the ability, if you have the talent in your expertise of dealing with marriage and family life, please contact the churches and get them ready. You have got a church there with a whole bunch of pews that you could fill, and talk about the challenges and the rewards of marriage and family life. So I think I've pretty much covered it this morning of where I would like for you guys to go. And listen, if you want to sit down if you guys are thinking about getting married, or if you are a father or mother of a child that's getting married and you want to have them sit down with somebody, have them sit down with me. I'll be more than happy to do that. I tell you, finances are tough. And always having a plan for your finances is a way to really reduce that. And talking about it also reduces it. And having a third party like myself, if you want to do pre-marriage mediation, I'll be more than happy to do it for you. Let's go over that. Let's go over a budget. Let's go over all of the things that will hit you. Listen, I am a licensed minister, and I am a certified mediator. So I have seen it from the beginning until the end. From saying I love you and I do to the time where we're going through divorce. So I can kind of guide you along with those situations if you really need it. And I'll be more than happy to talk to anybody. Because I feel and I know that if you have a plan, you can do a whole bunch of good. Listen, if you have any questions, just send me an email at mlodge@lodge-co.com. Or if you want to send me a text with a question or a response or a comment, send it to 818-252-5682. Again, that's 818-252-5682. I answer everything that I get, so don't worry about sitting there. I might be a little slow. I am old, okay? I might be a little slow in getting to your to your questions, but I will get to it, and I do answer it. This is Mike Lodge. Everyone, have a great day. Listen, if you want to help by supporting my podcast, if you like the content that I provide, go to www.buymeacoffee.com/Michael Lodge. I'd greatly appreciate it. Everybody go out and have a great Sunday. Remember, become spiritually blessed. Look up and say, thanks, God. I greatly appreciate you being with me. Talk with you soon. Bye-bye. This podcast has been produced by Michael Lodge, fully focused on content.